We did a lot of activities as a family together. And then my parents split apart, and then my dad died. At that point, my mom entirely just gave up on life. She became a heavy drinker and got numerous DUIs, and we would wake up in the morning time and she wouldn't be there, and then she would be gone for days at a time. As a very young kid, I'm thinking in my mind, how can I get a job so that I can help pay the rent? We ended up living with my grandmother, but then my mom got out of prison for her DUI and we went back to live with her. For my mom to be gone for 2 weeks at a time was normal, and we had an eviction notice on our door. My aunt came to the house and the sheriffs are there, and she's asking us where my mom's stuff is at, and all of my mom's stuff was gone. She left us. Nobody wants to be a teenager and have all that dysfunction. It's embarrassing. You don't feel normal. The point that really led us to foster care was that I tried to kill myself. I just wanted the pain to end. I ended up going to the psych ward for maybe about 2 months, and then my grandma became our foster parent. Me and my grandma, we just didn't really get along. I didn't have a problem calling out if I felt like I was being mistreated. No adult wants to deal with that. So my grandma ended up saying that I could no longer stay there. To go from a very unstructured environment where you basically had to raise yourself to then going to the structured environment where these adults wanted to tell you what to do, it was difficult. It was hard. I did get a reputation for being a bad kid just because I was very outspoken. I would call people out on mistreatments that I went through.
If you are a kid who's struggling with authority and getting into a little bit of trouble and you're in a middle-class family, it all stays in the household and you get forgiven. And it isn't under the radar and the microscope of a social worker and a county attorney and a guardian ad litem and a judge. Fairly garden variety adolescent behavior that is magnified because these kids are hurting so badly starts to become criminalized.
The next thing is I get a new social worker, and the very first meeting that I had with this social worker, she decided to send me to this facility called Elmore Academy. Her reasoning is that she felt like I needed a break. I can honestly tell you, she just didn't want to deal with me. She didn't care anything about what I was saying.
What I think nobody appreciates about what our clients face in terms of their situation and how the court system works, there's nobody and no way that's tasked to actually have the kid's voice.
She was trying to get me to go back to a foster home that was abusive, and I was basically telling her about the abuse, and she's coming back and countering it with like, oh, your foster mom said this, and I'd have to tell her like, no, that's not true, and I refused to go back to that foster home. So that's when she sent me to Elmore Academy.
I looked at her file and it was heartbreaking, and I couldn't imagine how she had navigated that.
When I first met Denise, I was very hesitant, and I thought that I was just going to be another case file to this woman.
My immediate impression with her was this is an incredibly resilient person, and this is somebody who's going to get through this. She just needs a little bit of help.
She took me underneath her wing to not just advocate for you in court, but to advocate for you in life.
I was inspired by her. I was excited by what could be her future if we could help her navigate the system.
I had never been to a court date, and I had asked numerous times to go to the court dates. I would call my social worker and ask her, and then she would say that they already had the court date. Denise made it happen. She made sure that I was there.
Because I'm the lawyer, the social worker would respond to me because the social worker would know that it was going to land in the courtroom if we didn't work it out.
She actually took time out of her day to sign me out on day passes where I could go and hang out with her at her law office. I just felt like she went above and beyond in being a mentor to me.
It's not only, am I somebody that Porscha can look outside of her family and see there's another way to live, but I also think the fact that I'm consistently there, and it's my job to be consistently there, I think that started to be impactful.
I went from where I was just accepting what was happening to a point where I realized that I did have power and I could make changes in my life that I wanted to make.
She was starting to move towards needing to be a self-supporting adult and doing all the transition into like living on her own and independent living skills. And I was able to be her voice in terms of how that was going, what she wanted it to look like. I mean, the whole reason people have lawyers is they need to move on to with their lives while people are dealing with the courtroom part. It's the same thing for these kids. Having that taken off of her plate, I think, is really impactful in terms of her being able to say, I'm working on my school stuff, I'm working on my relationships. They can live their lives.
My experience with the Children's Law Center was amazing. It was liberating. I don't think that I would be where I am today if I didn't have my lawyer. I still have a relationship with my lawyer, and I absolutely adore her. I know that at any point in my life I could contact her. She came into my life and became a part of my life.